Let's talk about tables in HTML. HTML actually allows us to create tables to visualize stuff like data. Let's take a look at how to do that. So in my code editor here, I have this HTML boiler code waiting for me. To create that, just type in Shift and exclamation mark, then press enter to get this populated for you. Then to create a table, type table. Now you can see this auto suggestion here. When this shows up, just click on tab or enter. I normally use enter sometimes, most of the time, sorry. So this is a table element, the table tag here, but this alone cannot create our table. If we refresh the page, let's save and refresh the page. Now we can see that nothing is showing on the page, but to actually create this table, we need data. We need stuff that will go into the table so that the user can actually see it as a table. So HTML only has one way to create tables in terms of the columns and rows. So we only use rows to create tables. And this actually makes sense because the rows are what creates the columns. So when you have a row like this, and then you have data going into that row, this will automatically create a column for the second row come over to come underneath it. So let's take a look. Let's take a look. So we have TR here, which is the table row, and we'll create two rows and see how we'll put in the data. And inside the T row, the table row, we'll put in data. So TD. TD stands for table data. Let's put in title. Let me put in data 1 here. Let's create more. Let's create 3 columns. This is how you create columns. Data 3 and data 2. And TR again for another row. If I let me comment this out. We looked at comments in the previous video. So let me comment this out and refresh the page to see the results. Now we can see everything is being displayed on the page, but then there is a little gap in between them. Now these 3 data would then form the lead to creating table columns. So if I create another row with 3 data in it, let's save this and put in the data. So TD, and put in R2 data, which stands for second row data. Data 1, 2, 3. So R2 data 2 and data 3 here. So let's save and refresh. Now, sorry, what's going on here? Okay, yeah, this is good. The reason why you're seeing it that way is because this test is actually longer than the one I first used. So let me remove this. Let me call this let me just put an okay, let me make this 4 and 5 and this one 6, so they are properly aligned. Now you can see the alignment is done properly. So we have 2 rows and 3 columns here, but then there is something we need to actually understand about tables in it. Tables in HTML use cells. So these little pieces you're seeing here, these data elements that I just highlighted, are actually cells that make up the table. So to visualize that, let's add borders around the table. To add border, you go to the table tag and put in the border attribute, and then you put in the size of the border you want. let's use 2 pixels. Let's refresh the page, and now you can see that this table has a border, but then when you look inside the table, you can see these little squares around our our data. So this is to tell you that HTML tables actually use cells to create their the different columns and rows. Secondly, we can see that this table is just a table. How do we know where the head is and where the body is? So we can do that. Let's create a second table. Let me just create a second table on top of this. Let me put in here, this is the first table. Let me add a comment. First table here, and then let me create another table here as second table, second table, and that's a comment there. And just like in the previous video, you guys know that this will not actually appear on the page when we refresh. Okay, we just refresh the page and it's not showing. This is not harmful. This is me documenting my code, which was one of the cases where you can use comment, as I explained in the previous video. So we create a table again. Just put in table. Now we want to know where the head is and where the body is. To do that, you use a T-head tag. T-head also has its own kind of data that goes in, which is not the normal TD that we use. We use a TH tag. So let's create let's put in some text, head 1, TH, head 2, TH again, and head 3. Now this is the table head we just created. When we refresh the page, we can see that this is quite different from the normal one that we created here. Now you can see that this actually represents something. It says it tells you, the user, that this part is different from this other side. Let's not confuse ourselves. So this is a different table here. Let me divide them so that we don't confuse things together. So now I just put a line between them, and let me create the the data for this table, this our new table now. So to do that, you put T body. Now T body is the table body. It will be treated as the table body. So this is not any different from the normal data we're creating here, this table rows here. And mind you, this TH is treated as column and a row as well. And everything in tables in HTML are cells. So let's put in the T body, let's put in a TD, which is table data. Let's say, let me put D1. Okay, let me put D1 for data 1, and let me expand this. Let me duplicate this one. Sorry. So this is the last data 3 and data 2. Save and refresh. Now we can see we have D1, D2, and D3, which are child items of this heading, of these headers here. So to actually visualize this very well, we still need to add the borders and put in let me use 2 pixels. Now we can see this head has a child item, and this one too, and so on. So there's another thing we need to know about tables in HTML. Let's create another so I forgot to add that we need to put the TR, which is the row so that we can create more rows into this. Sorry about that, I just corrected myself. Let's add in another row. Let's put in some data here, and let's put in D4, 6, and then 7. Let's refresh. Now we have these details here, these cells populated for us. Now let's see how we can make. What about when we want to make this, this table, this cell here, go from this part up to the, the second cell, the D2, from want D1 to take up D2 space. How do we do that? Imagine there was no D2 and this data is part of both the H1 and H2 columns. So let's remove the D2. Let's refresh the page. Let's save and refresh the page and see the results. Now we can see D3 has been shifted to this side to actually fill up the space. But we want D1 to cover H from H1 up to H2. So to do that, since it is in terms of, so when we are expanding from this side to that side, we are expanding the columns. So to make that, to expand columns in HTML, we use the call span attributes, and then we put in the value. So from where to where we want it, from the first one here up to the second one here. So we put in what, 2. So this will expand the column by 2 cells. Now we can see D1 has gone from here, from the heading 1 to the heading 2, and we can see the cell's border is now longer than how it was before. And let's make D1 go from the second row up to the third row. So let's say there was no D4. So let's remove D4 here. Save the page, our document, and refresh. Now we can see everything has been shifted towards the side, but we want D1 to take up the space of D4 that we just removed. So to do that, you add row span. So row span, we want it to cover 2 rows. So now you can see it has covered the row below it, and this data here has been shifted to this side. So there are a lot of things we can use tables for, and we can apply these techniques to actually suit our needs.